Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy. Mark's palms were slick with sweat as his hands gripped the steering wheel, the car hurtling down the road toward home. His wife Amelia's panicked voice still rang in his head, a sharp echo of fear. Not even an hour earlier, he'd been buried in the blueprints for the Riverview Heights development, a project that had the potential to redefine his career and secure his place as one of the most respected architects in the state. The phone call had shattered that moment. Mark, Amelia's voice broke through, the desperation unmistakable. You need to come home now. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, tires screeching as the car raced down the street, his mind in overdrive. His house, his pride, the sleek modern home he'd spent years perfecting, was surrounded by flashing lights. 3 police cruisers sat in front, blocking the entrance. His daughter, Sophia, only 16, was running toward him, mascara streaking down her face. Dad, please, she sobbed, grabbing onto his arm, pulling him closer. Just wait for Mom to explain. He gently pushed her aside, stepping past her and heading for the door. The moment he entered, the sharp, unmistakable scent of blood hit him. It was overwhelming, a metallic sting that made his stomach churn. His eyes quickly darted to the living room, and what he saw froze him in place. Blood spattered the white walls of the pristine room. Amelia was standing there, shaking uncontrollably, next to a detective. Her clothes were stained in crimson. Mr. Reynolds? The detective stepped forward, speaking in calm, measured tones. I'm Detective Clayton. There's been an incident. Your wife. I eliminated him. Amelia's voice cut through the room, shaky but direct. He broke in. He had a knife. I had no choice. Mark's eyes were drawn to the body on the floor, partially covered by a sheet. The knife, clearly the weapon used, sat neatly in an evidence bag on the coffee table. We believe it was self-defense, Clayton said, keeping his voice steady. The man is Chris Harris. He has a history of breaking and entering. Mark's gaze locked onto Amelia, but she refused to meet his eyes, her expression distant. His mind started to race, trying to make sense of the situation. The house showed no signs of forced entry. Amelia, the calm, collected woman who couldn't even handle a spider in the house, had somehow managed to overpower a man armed with a knife. As the police continued their work, Mark's eyes caught sight of Amelia's phone buzzing on the table nearby. He hadn't meant to pry, but something inside him compelled him to glance at the screen. From Alex. Are you okay? What happened? Call me as soon as you can. The name struck him like a punch to the gut. Alex, the landscape architect he had brought in for the Riverview project. The same Alex who had spent an unsettling amount of time working with Amelia on their backyard renovations. That night, after Sophia had finally fallen asleep and Amelia had taken something to help her sleep, Mark slipped quietly into his office. With the kind of focus that had brought him success in his career, he began to search for answers. Bank statements revealed unusual, unexplained withdrawals. Phone records showed hundreds of text messages exchanged between Amelia and Alex, most of them late at night. And worst of all, Mark discovered a hidden email account with plans that clearly indicated Amelia and Alex had been planning to run off together. But why had Harris been in the house? And why was he dead? Something about it didn't add up. Harris's face was vaguely familiar, but Mark couldn't figure out why. His gut told him there was more to this story than met the eye. After hours of digging, Mark made a connection. Harris had worked as a contractor on one of Alex's earlier projects. The man had a criminal record, convicted of attack after an altercation with a client. Mark's mind began to piece together the story. Alex had hired Harris for something. Maybe a job gone wrong, but whatever it was, it had gone terribly sideways. And now Amelia and Alex were desperately trying to cover it all up. By the time morning light began to filter through the blinds, Mark had formed a clear theory. Alex had tried to have him eliminated. It hadn't gone according to plan, and instead, Harris had ended up dead. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It was an attempt on Mark's life, and somehow the pieces had fallen apart. The man who had walked into his office the day before, full of ambition and trust, was gone. In his place stood someone colder, harder, and more calculating. Someone who wouldn't stop until he had uncovered the full truth. And once he had that truth, there would be no stopping the consequences. 3 weeks later, the investigation concluded. The authorities ruled Chris Harris's passing as a justifiable homicide, an attempted robbery gone wrong. Amelia had played the part of the traumatized wife perfectly. She attended therapy sessions, spoke in hushed tones, and made sure everyone knew how much she was suffering. To the outside world, Mark appeared to be the loving, supportive husband, taking time off from work to help his family recover. But behind closed doors, Mark had turned his office into an investigation headquarters. Photos, timelines, and maps of connections were pinned up on every wall. Each night, after Amelia took her prescribed sleeping pills, Mark would dive deep into the evidence. It didn't take long for him to discover even more. Amelia and Alex had been meeting at a cabin up in the mountains, a property Mark traced back to Alex through a shell company. Bank records revealed large sums of money being transferred between Alex and Harris. And the most damning of all, Mark found that life insurance policies had been taken out on him, with Amelia as the sole beneficiary. This wasn't just an interrupted robbery. This was an attempt on his life, and Harris had been caught in the crossfire. Knowing he needed help, Mark hired Victoria Harrison, a former military intelligence officer turned private investigator. Victoria was sharp, low-key, and had a network of contacts that could provide exactly what Mark needed without attracting attention. "They're still making moves," Victoria reported after a clandestine meeting at a diner far from town. "Alex has been making calls to someone named Thomas Dane. He's ex-military, dishonorably discharged, now working as a fixer for those who can pay." "They're looking for a replacement for Harris," Mark said, his voice colder than he felt. "That's the assumption, and they're starting to slip up. Your wife withdrew another $25,000 yesterday," Victoria added, her voice steady. Mark nodded, his expression unreadable. "Keep tracking them. I need everything recorded, every conversation, every meeting." Meanwhile, Mark played his part to perfection. He told Amelia that therapy wasn't working, suggesting they make a fresh start. He even mentioned the possibility of selling the house that had been the site of such trauma, and traveling for a while. He casually brought up reviewing their life insurance policies, watching her carefully for any signs of anxiety. "For Sophia's sake," he said gently, "we need to make sure she's taken care of no matter what happens." Sophia had always been Amelia's soft spot, the one person Amelia truly seemed to care about. Mark knew exactly how to press her buttons. Mark also began reconnecting with influential people in his professional network. He reached out to Oliver Green, a well-connected developer, and Lucia Martinez, a powerful lawyer known for her ruthless tactics in court. Most importantly, he struck up a friendship with Ryan Fox, a tech entrepreneur who had recently bought the local news station. Over casual conversations about architecture and the state of the industry, Mark laid the groundwork for future relationships. At the Riverview project, he maintained a cordial relationship with Alex, even though he had no intention of allowing the man to stay in the loop for much longer. "Sometimes I wonder if Amelia is blaming me for something," Mark confided during one site visit, letting just the right amount of vulnerability slip through. "She's been so distant lately. I'm really worried about our marriage." Alex, clearly uncomfortable, offered awkward reassurances but avoided eye contact. Later that evening, surveillance photos showed Alex handing Amelia a burner phone in the parking lot. 2 months after Harris's end, Mark got a call from his investigator. "They're moving forward," Victoria said, her voice calm but urgent. "Alex met with Dane yesterday, and I intercepted a text from your wife to Alex. Everything's set for this weekend." Mark's heart didn't race. He remained calm, his voice steady. "Then we'll be ready." Mark sat in front of his laptop going over the final steps of his plan. For weeks, he had been constructing his own blueprint, not out of concrete and steel, but with evidence, alliances, and carefully orchestrated moves. Every angle had been covered, every possible outcome accounted for. He checked the date on the calendar. 3 days until the weekend. 3 days until Amelia and Alex made their move. 3 days until Mark revealed the devastating consequences of betrayal. When Friday arrived, the storm outside mirrored Mark's state of mind. The heavy rain fell in sheets as he had breakfast with Amelia, telling her he had to drive to the city for an urgent meeting with investors who were concerned about the Riverview project. "I'll be late," he said, placing a kiss on her cheek, feeling her subtle flinch. "Be careful in the storm," she replied, her smile faltering, eyes avoiding his. Mark made a show of heading to his office, knowing Alex had someone watching his every move. But once inside, he quietly slipped out through a back exit, where Victoria was waiting in an unmarked car. "Dane picked up his payment this morning," she reported. Your wife packed a bag and told Sophia she'd be staying with her sister tonight. Maybe it was the way she was looking at him. Concerned, but careful, like she was gauging his mood before deciding how to respond. Just tired. Long week. She nodded and went upstairs. My team's already in position to monitor everything. By the time the afternoon rolled in, everything was in place. Mark was sitting in a rented cabin just a mile away from Alex's mountain retreat, keeping a close watch on the multiple screens in front of him. At 4:17 p.m., Amelia's car appeared on the monitor. Alex was there to greet her with a passionate kiss before they went inside. Their conversation confirmed every suspicion. They discussed their plans to stage Mark's self-destruction next week, using financial difficulties as the motive. Alex had already begun circulating rumors about Mark's mismanagement of the Riverview project. The life insurance payout would go through, and after a proper mourning period, they'd start fresh together. "Is Thomas on board?" Amelia asked, her voice strained. "He's more reliable than Chris was," Alex assured her. "This time, there won't be any mistakes." Mark watched them, his expression distant, like an architect assessing a doomed structure. When Thomas Dane arrived at 7:23 p.m., Mark sent a text he had prepared earlier. 12 minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air, and police cruisers flooded the cabin's driveway, lights flashing in the rain. Detective Clayton, now fully aware of everything thanks to Mark's diligent work, led the team that arrested them. Dane attempted to flee, but was quickly caught. Alex tried to insist that the meeting was innocent, but the hidden cameras had caught everything. Amelia collapsed into a chair, her carefully crafted persona unraveling as she realized the trap had been sprung. At the same time, Mark was securing his alibi. He attended a high-profile charity gala in the city, making sure to be photographed with Oliver Green and several influential city officials. Lucia Martinez, now fully briefed, stood by to represent Mark's interests. Meanwhile, Ryan Fox was ready to ensure the media would report on the events accurately, portraying the situation not as a scandal, but as the premeditated criminal conspiracy it truly was. By midnight, Mark was giving his statement to the police, playing the role of the shocked, betrayed husband with just the right amount of conviction to earn sympathetic looks from the officers. But the real brilliance came the following day. Mark let the world see the full scope of his wife's betrayal. The evidence he had meticulously gathered revealed something much darker than a simple affair. Financial records showed that Alex had been siphoning money from multiple development projects, including Riverview Heights. Amelia, with her background in finance, had played a key role in laundering the money through shell companies. Their plot hadn't been just to eliminate Mark. It had been to silence him. Mark had unknowingly uncovered discrepancies in the Riverview project's finances, and that had put them in a corner. The district attorney charged them with conspiracy to commit homicide, attempted homicide, fraud, money laundering, and a long list of other crimes. With the damning evidence at hand, their legal teams pushed for plea deals. Alex received 25 years, Amelia 17, and Thomas Dane, with his criminal history, was sentenced to life in prison. During interrogation, Dane revealed that Chris Harris wasn't hired to eliminate Mark, but to steal critical architectural plans and financial documents. Amelia, enraged over payment disputes, had eliminated Harris and fabricated the story of a break-in. 6 months later, Mark sat in his newly reconstructed office reviewing designs for an urban renewal project that would solidify his legacy. Sophia, who had initially been crushed by her mother's betrayal, had found a sense of stability through therapy and her father's unwavering support. She now sat across from him, sketching her own architectural ideas, her talent undeniable, just like Mark's once had been. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria, who had become more than just an investigator in his life. "Hearing just concluded. Amelia's appeal has been denied. Thought you'd want to know." Mark acknowledged the message with a brief reply before turning back to his work. There was no sense of triumph or gloating, just a quiet, steadfast certainty that justice had been served. The world had learned what happens when you cross Mark Reynolds. He had unraveled their entire scheme with the same precision and attention to detail that had made him a master architect. No room for forgiveness, no chance of redemption. As the evening darkened, Mark gazed out at the neighborhood he once shared with Amelia. The whispers about the scandal had shifted, and now there was something new in the air. Respect, tinged with fear. The neighbors who had once seen him as just another successful architect now saw him differently. He had transformed from a respected professional to a cold, calculating strategist, a man who had orchestrated the perfect revenge without ever getting his hands dirty. Mark closed his laptop and joined Sophia for dinner. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, and should anyone dare to cross him again, They would learn the same lesson Amelia and Alex had learned too late. Mark Reynolds didn't just design buildings. He designed consequences, and they were always flawless.